And yet the Democrats are going to filibuster it, and it's just a spirit of. It seems that it's like they're doing the same thing they would do if like the nominee had been like, "Oh, we're going to the briefing. We'll see you after."
I want to start by acknowledging, as the president did a little while ago, that a great American, Kirk Cochran, was killed in the terror attack in London yesterday. Our prayers are with his family and friends. We're aware of reports that another American citizen was injured, as well as potential as the story continues to develop. We stand ready to provide consular assistance, but considering some privacy concerns, I'm not going to further discuss this current state of any of those individuals at this time. As I said yesterday, the president spoke with UK Prime Minister May to offer his condolences and pledge the full cooperation and support of the United States government in responding to this attack and bringing those responsible to justice. Now, a little bit on a today's schedule. This morning, after receiving his daily intelligence briefing, the president met with over 30 members of the House Freedom Caucus to discuss building momentum towards replacing and repealing Obamacare with the American Health Care Act. The members of the Freedom Caucus thanked the president for engaging with them throughout their negotiations, and the president likewise thanked the group for their willingness to work closely with the White House and their colleagues to craft the strongest bill possible. The group agreed that their ultimate goal is to implement a system that will drive down costs and increase access to health care for millions of Americans, and this meeting was, I think, a very positive step towards achieving that goal. This is just the latest in a series of discussions in person and on the phone that the president, the vice president, and his team have had holding with the Republican House members on the American Health Care Act. This afternoon, we expect the president to continue those meetings with members of the Tuesday group from the House coming up here later today. Since the law was introduced, the Legislative Affairs team has been in constant contact with the members of the American people will be counting on to fulfill their promise of repealing and replacing Obamacare by supporting this bill later tonight. In the past few days, the president has been on the phone with scores of Republican members, in addition to the in-person meeting you've seen with the Republican Study Committee, the House Freedom Caucus, and the Tuesday group. This bill has truly been a collaborative effort from the beginning. Through an open and deliberative process, the president and his team have helped to negotiate a very, very strong bill. He was on the phone last night well into the 11 o'clock hour with members on an individual basis discussing their support for the bill. The amendments that have been incorporated add important aspects to the bill, like removing costly essential health benefit insurance regulations, repealing Obamacare taxes immediately starting in 2017, reforming Medicaid by allowing states to accept funding as a block grant to implement able-bodied work requirements, and blocking states from receiving enhanced federal medical assistance percentages if they expanded during the transition. We've already seen the results, with many members coming out and saying they're going to be a yes tonight. As I've noted before, today is actually the 7th, and we hope the last anniversary of the day that President Obama signed Obamacare. The president is looking forward to seeing Republicans fulfill the pledge tonight that they've been making to their constituents for years, that with a Republican in the White House and with them in Congress, they would once and for all see the end of Obamacare. The president, I assume that President Obama must be feeling this time is up for his signature law, since today he came out with a rather lengthy statement about it, but he can't change the facts about where it stands. President Obama stated that Americans received a, quote, upgrade in insurance. But the mandates Obamacare placed on insurance forced millions off their insurance and away from their doctor, which broke the promise that they were given. President Obama attempted to move the goalposts on costs, downplaying the skyrocketed premiums, some in the case of over 100% in some places, and unaffordable deductibles. Americans, he seems to have forgotten that he pushed Obamacare on the promise of reducing costs, not making health care unaffordable. President Obama said Obamacare isn't, quote, in a death spiral, but enrollment is nowhere near expectations, and this year it's actually declining. Insurers are fleeing the exchanges, and 1 in 3 counties in America only has one insurer. President Obama may not believe that Obamacare is a, quote, job killer, but the new law, including its job-killing taxes, mandates, and regulations, speak for itself. With the passage of the American Health Care Act, we will begin the process of rolling back Obamacare's many disastrous policies. And of course, it's not just a big day on the House side. Over on the Senate, we begin the final and 4th day of Judge Gorsuch's Senate Judiciary hearings. Earlier today, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer announced that Senate Democrats will be mounting a filibuster against his nomination. From day one, we've said that the president made an inspired choice with the nomination of Judge Gorsuch. The American Bar Association has given him their highest rating of well qualified. This week, though, through all 4 days, he has showcased his sterling credentials and a brilliant legal mind. We find Senator Schumer's announcement truly disappointing because it breaks with the tradition of how the Senate has handled Supreme Court confirmation votes in modern time and represents the type of partisanship that Americans grown tired of. In the last half century, only 3 Supreme Court justices have ever faced a filibuster. The most recent, Justice Alito, was opposed by then Senator Obama, who voted to uphold his filibuster and later admitted that his vote was a politically motivated act that he regretted. In fact, Senate Republicans didn't filibuster his Supreme Court nominees, Kagan and Sotomayor. We call on Senator Schumer to follow Democrats to abandon this attempt to block Judge Gorsuch from receiving a fair up or down vote that he and the American people have voted for. Back to the rest of the president's schedule. This afternoon, the president, as I mentioned, will meet with members of the Tuesday group. He had lunch with Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin and Nelson Peltz at 3 o'clock today. We hope you'll come out and join the president to welcome the truck drivers and truck company CEOs who will be meeting with on the American Health Care Act as they arrive to the White House alongside 2 rather large big rigs. 1 in every 16 Americans work for the trucking industry. It's the backbone of our country's domestic freight transportation, and it moves over 70% of domestic freight tonnage. But the trucking industry has suffered greatly under Obamacare. Many truckers were forced to buy health care plans that weren't necessarily right for them on the exchanges. Like millions of Americans across the country, they saw their premiums rise and their options plummet. And trucking companies classified as large employers under the law are mandated to provide insurance that we already know doesn't work. Instead of imposing senseless restrictions from Washington, the president's 3-pronged health care reform plan will lower premiums and increase choice by increasing competition. The president looks forward to discussing how these policies, combined with forthcoming tax, regulatory, and trade reforms, will provide much-needed relief for the trucking industry. Also today, the vice president met with President Hernandez of Honduras. A readout on that meeting is available from the vice president's office. And a few notes before I get to your questions. As the president noted during his first cabinet meeting earlier this month, while many of the spectacularly qualified choices to lead his departments and agencies are already in place and taking action to fulfill the president's ambitious agenda, there are still some important positions that have not been filled, in large part to Senate Democrats' obstruction. I wanted to give you a quick update on still some of the outstanding confirmation. Secretary of Labor designate Alex Acosta had a very successful hearing yesterday, and we expect markup next week. Secretary of Agriculture designate former Governor Sonny Perdue is currently appearing before the Senate Ag Committee. We expect Governor Perdue to continue to show why he's the best choice to lead the USDA, and hopefully his markup to be scheduled in the coming days. We also announced earlier this afternoon that Prime Minister Rasmussen of Denmark will be visiting the White House on March 30th. We'll have further details on the visit in the upcoming days. Tomorrow, the president will host Medal of Honor recipients and their guests in celebration of Medal of Honor Day, which falls on Saturday of this year. We'll have some more details on that event coming forward. The president intends to be here this weekend, so as we have updates on the president's weekend plans, we will let you know as well. I'll also note that we've got coming up on a deadline related to the Keystone Pipeline. We'll have an update on that for you tomorrow. And finally, I'm proud to announce that on April 19th, the anniversary of the battles of Lexington and Concord, the New England Patriots will be visiting the White House to celebrate their latest, and what will probably be a continuation of many more to come, Super Bowl win. And with that, I will take your questions. Jeff Mason.
Sean,
This is a Patriots question.
no, it's not.
Did you know anything about Tom Brady's jersey? Is this
I have
true
nothing-
confession?
I've got nothing on that.
Okay.
But I have a healthcare question for you. First, do you expect there to be a vote tonight?
That's what I understand the House is scheduled, yes.
Any chance that that's going to be pushed back?
That would be obviously up to Speaker Ryan and Leader McCarthy, but nothing leads me to believe that that's the case.
Is the president concerned at all that as he draws support for the bill from the Freedom Caucus, that he may lose support from more moderate members of the House?
He's meeting with members of the Tuesday group today. Obviously, this is something that he understands. There's a little bit of a balancing act that goes on as you try to get 216 in this case, but I think we've continued to make progress every day. We walked out with more members in support of the American Health Care Act today than we started the day with, and I continue to see that number climb hour by hour, and I anticipate that we will get there. Blake.
Sean, Patrick McHenry said we have an offer. They, speaking of the House Freedom Caucus, can accept it or reject it. Is that the way that you see it at this moment? Are you just waiting on the House Freedom Caucus to come to your side? Are you at their wins at this point? What's their status as far as you know?
I think there are some members who, in the meeting, stood up and told the president, "I'm with you now." And I think member by member, that's how they're going to vote. I think we've continued to see that number rise. And the same thing with the Tuesday group. There are members that had not been with us that are expressing that their willingness to want to be part of this. The president went over several commitments and changes that have been made to assuage different folks that have continued to evolve. And I think that we continue to see the number rise. But I think that we continue to see the number go up, not down, and that's a very positive sign.
Do you know how many came across and what it was that brought them across in that meeting?
It depends. I don't think there's any singular issue in a lot of cases. There's a lot. I think we talked a little bit about sections of the bill that there was an issue with. And so I think there's a couple areas that there is some common ground on, but it was over 30 members there today, and some of them had specific aspects that they wanted to see improved, and some of them, frankly, came to say, "Hey, thank you. I think that what you guys have done already has been an improvement."
With them, is it essential health benefits? Is that their main sticking point?
In a lot of cases, there were some members that was their number one thing, but again, it wasn't universal across the board. But again, I think some of the measures that have been taken along the way have really, and again, it's there's also beyond that. There's a lot of discussion about phase 2 and phase 3, and I think the president and the vice president both committed to continuing working and improving and making commitments on the totality and the comprehensive nature of how we're going to do this. For a lot of these guys, it really comes down to premium increases. They're very concerned about what they're seeing their constituents face, and I think the president, the vice president, Secretary Price, Director Mulvaney, Reince Priebus, the chief of staff, the legislative affairs team, we're all continuing to work with them to talk about certain measures that have been put in place to drive down cost. And I think when you realize it, what we've continued to talk about, that costs are too high, premiums are spiking, deductibles are going up, choices are going down. These are real concerns for constituents of these members. And I think that as they see an overall and total commitment of this, it's making them feel a lot better about not just this bill, but phases 2 and 3. Matt.
Thanks. 2 questions, both on healthcare. First one, is the president open to removing protections for pre-existing conditions from the bill?
I think that's been something that he's been very clear needs to stay in there.
Okay. Secondly, about this essential benefits protections, obviously among those is maternity leave. So how would removing that jive with the president's promise during the campaign to expand maternity leave? Obviously, this would take it out, and insurers would no longer have to provide that.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to get into a benefit by benefit discussion here, but I think that there's a lot of concerns, as I just said to Blake, that part of the reason that premiums have spiked out of control is because under Obamacare, there were these mandated services that had to be included. And what happened is that older men, older women who had gone past maternity age were buying benefits that weren't necessary for them. People who were at the younger end of the age scale were buying end-of-life benefits. And I think this goes back to the nut of this discussion, Matt, which is we have now gone down to a system where in 1/3 of all counties there's one choice. And it's this potpourri of mandated benefits that everyone has to have. We've lost consumer choice. And so people are paying for benefits that neither they, their spouse, their family needs, which is driving up costs for everybody. And so part of it isn't about necessarily a benefit. It's about a series of benefits being mandated for that everybody. And so what has happened is that the costs of health care for every individual has gone up and the choice has gone down. And I think there is a philosophical discussion that is going on about what we can do to make sure that people have actual coverage, something that we've talked about before, but doing so in a way that doesn't drive up the cost for everybody.
So one follow-up on that then, is the president concerned that without having those essential benefits in there, you'll have a situation where women are just de facto paying higher for health insurance? Obviously, they'd be paying for maternity leave.
No, you could have a family plan. I mean, in other words, the point is that it's not, again, you're picking one benefit and trying to extrapolate it. It's also saying, should young people have to pay for end-of-life care? The idea is to instill choice back into the market so that it's not just about one particular benefit. It's allowing people to tailor a plan and a cost point that's good for them or their family or them and their spouse, but it's not just about one particular benefit. It's about looking at this and figuring out what are the cost drivers and how do we give people the choice that they need. Sarah.
Thanks, John. The White House and House leadership initially defended the way this bill was written by saying it needed to be structured a certain way and exclude certain things to be able to proceed through the Senate through budget reconciliation. So what's changed to put now these pretty substantive policy changes on the table? What's given the White House and Republicans confidence that now it can survive through that same process in the Senate?
I think there's a lot of discussion that goes on without getting too into it. The issue at hand is the Byrd Rule and whether or not it affects the budgetary, that you can't have policy making things that don't have a budgetary impact. There are certain things that are being phrased in certain ways and crafted in accordance with the rule, but there's a lot of smart people that are very familiar with the rules and are trying to do things in a way to make this bill conform in those ways. Zeke.
Hey, Sean, two questions for you. One on the healthcare bill first. A question about the way this bill is now being modified to basically pick up votes. There on Monday night, that manager's amendment included that special carve-out for upstate New York, which had a bunch of good nicknames that I can't do justice for. But then also now some of these latest bits of horse trading. Is the president concerned that this bill now looks a lot like the procedurally what it looked like, what Obamacare looked like 7 years ago? That the Republicans have spent 7 years criticizing the way that bill was brought to the floor, and here they are 7 years later on the same day about to do the exact same thing.
No, not at all. In fact, it's doing exactly what we intended to do. I mean, the exchange that we had with Matt, it's actually going, the two goals that it set out to do, it's actually doing. Driving costs down, finding ways to lower premiums, keep deductibles within reason, or at least giving people the option to choose a plan that fits their budget. And then secondly is doing things that instill competition, choice. So the things that are being done actually achieve the goals that have been set forth. Jim.
So I have one for you, just on a different question. Yesterday, Secretary Madison, Chairman Dunford testified on the Capitol Hill that they were willing to have Congress have a public debate around a new AUMF. Is that something that traditionally those have started from in the executive branch? Is the White House willing to put one forward and willing to begin that round of discussions?
I refer you back to Secretary Mattis. I think that is one that the Department of Defense is.
So do you think that statement is operative for the White House? That the White House now is calling would like?
No. I think that was brought up in the context of a conversation that he is willing to have with respect to overseas contingencies that are existing right now in the battle, especially with respect to ISIS, and the current tools that we have to combat them. But I think that was a discussion about whether or not we should have a discussion on authorized use of force or not, and how to have that. Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now that Chuck Schumer has announced a definite filibuster of Judge Neil Gorsuch, do you think it's time for the White House to take a stand on eliminating the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees?
I am not going to. I'll let Senator McConnell is a much more apt user and understanding of the Senate rules. I am not going to start to tell Senator McConnell what he should be doing from here.
It's your nominee, and
I understand that, and it's his rules and his chamber that he leads. So I'm going to let that, John.
Sean, thank you. Has anybody from the National Security team or the Homeland Security folks been in touch with their counterparts in London in the last 24 hours or so?
Yes.
Can you expound on that at all, or for not?
Only to the extent to say that they've been in touch to evaluate, offer assistance, and again, I'm not going to get into a classified discussion about what we may or may not discussing.
A supportive effort, needless to say.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Chairman Nunes today refused to definitively rule out that he received the information he announced yesterday on surveillance that he got that from the White House. So will you rule out that the White House or anyone in the Trump administration gave Chairman Nunes that information?
I don't know what he actually briefed the president on, but I don't know why he would come up to brief the president on something that we gave him.
Well, that's why it was confusing to many of us, so I was
Right.
wondering, yeah.
I don't know that that makes sense. I did not sit on that briefing. I'm not, it just doesn't, so I don't know why he would brief the speaker and then come down here to brief us on something that we would have briefed him on. It doesn't really seem to make a ton of sense. So I'm not aware of it, but it doesn't really pass the smell test. Hallie.
Thanks, John. I'll healthcare couple for you. Mark Meadows says came out of the meeting, he said there is no deal.
Right.
Does the president acknowledge that this bill appears to be in trouble right now?
No, I think that we're going to continue. I mean, it's not a question of trouble. There's no deal. We weren't asking for a deal. The
You
president.
wouldn't call this essential health benefits package a deal?
No, I think for a lot of members it was, and I think some of them stood up and said, "Mr. President, we're with you." I think a lot of them said, "We're going to go back and think about it," but there was no. The meeting didn't conclude by saying, "Do we have a deal?" That's not why we had it. I think for some members this has been.
Final offer before it is-
No, I think this was a discussion that the president continues to have. I think we have been very, very pleased with the direction it's going in and the number of members who have expressed their support for it. We'll continue that discussion with the Tuesday group. But the number is growing, the number of members who have shared concerns, and I think that we have been very responsive, as well as Speaker Ryan, to the concerns and ideas that members have expressed from across the spectrum.
Two quick clarifications. You've said that there is only Plan A.
Right.
At this point, is there an acknowledgement that perhaps there does need to be a Plan B if this vote doesn't happen tonight?
Plan A.
Okay, the next follow-up is just the president has asked Speaker Ryan to delay this vote while he works with some of these members to try to convince him to come
Sorry,
on board.
so what's that?
Has the president asked Speaker
No.
Ryan to delay the vote?
Steve.
I was going to offer you the opportunity to respond to what Leader Pelosi said today. She said that it's a rookie mistake to set a date for a bill before there's consensus in the Republican caucus. What's your response to that?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think we have a pretty strong record on the Republican side of getting bills passed, getting things done. And so I know that they have a pretty strong record of passing things and telling people that they can read the bill afterwards. I think we've done this the right way, and I think we know that we've done it with the support that voters told members and the presidents that they wanted. Jonathan.
Tangentially related, if I might.
Yeah, of course.
There are some former White House lawyers who served in the prior administration who say that by tweeting from his official POTUS account this morning a video that was put out on official social media channels, the president and the White House have violated the anti-lobbying law because they're using money that was appropriated by Congress. Is that a concern you guys appreciate? Is it something that's been talked about here?
It is not the president. It doesn't. That is not applicable to the president. No. So there is no. I mean, I believe you're referring to 18 U.S. Code 1913. If I'm correct, I think we're pretty good on it. Jonathan.
Thanks, Sean. The president wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. He's considered the ultimate closer when it comes to negotiations. If this deal falls through, if this bill does not pass, would he accept the blame for its failure? And if not, who would?
Let's get to the vote tonight. I'm not going to start. I think the president has done a phenomenal job. There's no question. I think when you look at the effort that he's put in, the number of meetings that he's had, and the changes that have been to the bill, there's no question how hard the president and his team, the vice president, have worked to get this done. And it's in response. At the end of the day, we can't force somebody to vote. But I think, as I mentioned to Hallie and several other folks, I like the direction that this thing is going. I think that we continue to see support go with us. We're not seeing people fall off. We're seeing people come on board. That's a great trajectory to have, and so I like where we're headed. Yeah.
Two very quick clarifications on previous answers, and then a real question. I think the issue was with the anti-lobbying law, not what the president had done, but what White House staffers were doing with their official Twitter accounts. So while the law does not apply to the president,
Right.
there's a question about White House staffers.
Okay, so do you want me to answer that one?
Sure.
Let me read from you from 18 U.S. Code 1913. The Department of Justice consistently has construed that the Anti-Lobbying Act as limiting the lobbying activities personally undertaken by the President, his aides, and assistants within the Executive Office of the President, the Vice President, Cabinet members within their areas of responsibility, and other Senate-confirmed officials appointed by the President responsibility. So there's clearly a carve-out for that. Next.
When you're talking about the Byrd Rule earlier,
Yeah.
can we read from your answer that Vice President Pence does not at any point intend to overrule the Senate parliamentarian
It's not a question of overrule. You don't overrule. The Senate parliamentarian makes interpretations. It's up to the presiding officer. So I do. I understand, but I also understand how the Senate works, and the presiding officer determines. The Senate parliamentarian is asked for guidance.
Sure, and if the guidance from the Senate parliamentarian is that something would violate the Byrd rule, would Vice President Pence?
I'm not going to answer hypotheticals about what he may not do, not on this bill or anyone else. You got one? Let's.
Just finally, CNN reported yesterday that U.S. officials believe that are investigating that associates of President Trump communicated with suspected Russian operatives to coordinate the release of information damaging to Hillary Clinton's campaign. I'm wondering if you can respond to that or say definitively that they did not do so.
So let's actually look at what CNN reported. They reported that anonymous U.S. officials have told them that information indicates that association of the campaign and suspected operatives coordinated, which they admit is not conclusive of anything, is bordering on collusion. The last line of the thing said, quote, "The FBI cannot yet prove that collusion took place." I think there's probably more evidence that CNN colluded with the Clinton campaign to give her debate questions than the Trump campaign gave any kind of collusion. So I think when it comes down to that reporting, it is filled with a bunch of subjective terms about this person may have done this, possibly could have done that. And at the end of the story, if you wade to the very bottom, it says the FBI cannot yet prove that collusion took place. So I have addressed this type of reporting in the past, and this fits right in. John.
Without getting too deep in the weeds on exactly what the strategy is in the Senate to get this amended bill through the Byrd bath, is the president confident that the strategy that's being developed in the Senate will result in a bill that can pass muster?
Yes.
And the president told us several weeks ago that if it looked like the Democrats were going to filibuster Judge Gorsuch, he would encourage Mitch McConnell to invoke the nuclear option. Has the president's position on that changed at all?
The president has not spoken to Senator McConnell yet. I think Senator Schumer, as you know, within the last hour or so came out with his position. I'm sure that after we get through tonight, the president will have some kind of conversation with Senator McConnell and discuss Senate strategy. We're not there yet. Trey.
Following up on Jordan's question, and then I have a follow-up on Hallie's question. How did Chairman Nunes end up at the?
I'm not sure there's.
How did Chairman Nunes end up at the White House yesterday? This morning he said he invited himself here, but that's sort of an uncommon way to end up here. Can you take us through sort of the tick-tock of what happened?
No, I don't know how he got here. I assume in a car. But I also don't track him. I think I don't keep his schedule either. I don't. No, I don't. He literally gave a press conference as we were starting and saying, I'm going to go down to the press conference, down to the White House after he briefed the press.
And the first time that the White House was made aware of the surveillance that he brought to the president yesterday?
I believe that the information that he shared with the president was new.
And then the follow-up on health care, is there any sort of plan if the bill does not pass tonight? What is the plan B?
It's going to pass. So that's it. Caitlin.
Now that you've been briefed, I know yesterday you hadn't been, everything had just happened. Can you say if the information that Nunes had is the same information that the president said he had that would be revealed this week?
We're not going to. There's my understanding, because I was not briefed on the contents of that, was that he spoke generally about what he had seen in these reports that he had been made privy to. But that there was further details. He wanted the president to know what he had seen and that it wasn't related to Russia. But he's continuing, again, all of his public comments are that he is going to continue to pursue this, and they'll have further updates later. But I'm not aware of the specific nature of it. Cecilia.
Wait, one more question.
Yeah.
What will the president's reaction be to Republicans who vote against the health care bill tonight? And are they being encouraged to vote their conscience?
Well, I think I've addressed this before, but I think the president's made very clear that Republicans in particular have made a commitment to constituents and to the American people that if given the opportunity to have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House, that they would enact a repeal and replace and put into it a patient-centered health care. I mean, he believes, as he mentioned when he met with the House conference, as he mentioned with the members of the Freedom Caucus today, and I think in several meetings, that this is something that we've talked about. You've taken a bunch of these free votes when it didn't matter because you didn't have a Republican president, and you got to vote for repeal and go back and tell your constituents something like 50 times. Well, this is a live ball now, and this is for real, and we're going to do what we pledged to the American people and keep our word. And he's made it very clear that part of the reason that he got elected is because he went out and made a series of bold pledges to the American people about what he would do if he were president, and he's acting on those. And he's acting swiftly and boldly with respect to this in particular, and that he believes that not just him, but that members of the House and the Senate have an obligation to fulfill the promise and the pledge that they made to the American people. Cecilia.
Regardless of what happens tonight, will we hear from the president? Will he come out and make a statement?
I think it's going to depend on what time the vote is. So I don't want to commit. I'm sure in some way, shape, or form we'll have some kind of comment.
And similar to the question you were asked here, but is the president, no matter what happens, prepared to take responsibility for the outcome of this bill?
Well, in what way?
Whether it succeeds or fails. His name is on it. A lot of people think so.
Well, I think that in the sense that we've been very clear about this is a priority of ours and we worked with them. But I go back to, at the end of the day, we can't make people vote. We've done everything we can to listen to them, to incorporate their thoughts, to incorporate their ideas, to make the bill as best we can. But it's a balancing act, make no mistake about it, that there's a full spectrum of folks in the House that have disparate desires. But I think we can all commit that this is the one vehicle that's going to repeal something that almost every single Republican that I'm aware of has pledged to do if they were reelected or elected. And I think that there's a desire we understand that not every member is going to find this perfect. That's what happens when you need to get, in this case, 216 votes. But it's the best bill that takes into consideration all of the concerns and all of the goals and all the values. And I understand that in a lot of cases, some of it isn't a question of the policy. It's a question of the timing and some of the things that people want that are happening in phase 3 and phase 1. But as we've addressed, the Byrd rule, which is, to most people this arcane thing, probably even in the House, that don't have to deal with it in the Senate, that deals with whether or not, and if it is loaded up with things that are stricken, then it doesn't serve us any good. I think that we have put together a very comprehensive approach to addressing how to actually repeal and how to actually replace. I think the president walked through with the House Freedom Caucus today several of the administrative acts that Secretary Price would be taking in accordance with the authority that was granted to him by the Obamacare legislation and by some of the actions that Secretary Sebelius took back in 2009. There's a lot of concern among members about some of the sequencing on things, and I think that we have continued to not. So this isn't just about policy. Some of it's about sequencing and timing. And I think the president and the vice president and the rest of the team have done a lot to reassure them on the sequencing and how this thing is going to act. So that discussion, I think, has continued to be very productive to reassure members how this thing is going to happen and take place. Amen.
Thanks, John. A moment ago, you said there were some members of the House Freedom Caucus in the meeting today who were no's, who stood up and said, Mr. President, I'm with you. Can you tell us how many of those there were and what their names were?
Not yet. Well, I'm not, because, and I'm not trying to be cute about this. I think as we do this, as we do the whip count, I think, as you can imagine, that we've got to make sure that we don't, that this balancing act, and you've got to now make sure that certain people don't fall off the end as you pick up certain people. And so we're keeping that vote total rather tight right now, but I feel very buoyed by the direction that we're headed in.
Can you give us a sense of what specific offer was made? There's been reporting the final offer was put on the table for these guys. What specific changes did the president offer them today that were new that we haven't seen before?
It's not just changes, as I mentioned to Cecilia. Part of this is some of the administrative stuff and making sure that they have reassurances that certain things that Secretary Sebelius enacted when she enrolled the bill, when enacted the bill, that will be acted upon immediately, and so there was an enumeration of some of those things, and a commitment on some of the other aspects of support that would be given for the Phase 3 bills about buying across state lines, increasing HSAs. There was a lot of talk about that, and that's where I think a lot of this comes down to right now, especially among those members. They feel very good about the changes that have been made in the manager's amendment, and they feel very good. There's some question about the commitment and changes that might take place in the Senate, and so that there was a lot of, can we count on this when this happens? So I just want to, some of this is working that way. Goyle?
Thank Thank you very much, Sean. Two questions, please. One, as far as 68 countries representing against terrorism or against ISIS at the State Department under the leadership of Secretary of State Tillerson, there was a advisor to the President of Afghanistan, Mr. Humayun Kami, here speaking at the CSIS, and also day before yesterday at the Atlantic Council. He was addressing Mr. Salahuddin Rabbani, who is the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan. What they both were saying or addressing the audience at these two think tanks, that unless we control two countries who are financing and training, Saudi Arabia is financing in the name of charities, and Pakistan is training. So what is the presidential message to this group? At the same time, there is a Mr. Afzal Saeed who is wanted by the US, $10 million, there is a bounty on him, and he is openly spilling hatred against the US and India in Pakistan, in Lahore. So where do we go from here?
So Secretary Tillerson's in the meeting of, have been going through this meeting with 68 of those members that are committed to addressing Syria and ISIS. I'm not going to get ahead of the internal discussions that Secretary Tillerson's having related to the administration's review of Syria's policy in particular. But I would stay in touch with the State Department on that. John?
My question, please.
Okay.
As far as President's relation with the Indian American community is concerned, it goes back 40 years. It was 1976 when a spiritual leader came from all the way from India to New York City, and he wanted to have a parade, Festival of India in New York, but they didn't have any resources or sources. But Mr. Trump, that time, Donald Trump, came out and helped the group to go on this festival. But now, candidate Trump was also among the Indian American community celebrating Diwali in New Jersey. Same group who has been now at the White House this weekend, a peaceful prayer and vigil. They are asking the president to come out or meet the Indian American community against hate crime, or somebody from the White House.
Well, I think we've discussed the nature of hate crimes in the past, and we've condemned the act that happened in Kansas earlier this year. Obviously, I'm sure that this is a very important issue for them. The president's right now focused in particular on getting Obamacare repealed and replaced. The issue in London, there's a lot that's occupying his time, and I'm sure that we will continue to monitor that situation as well. Mara, maybe someday. We'll see. Yeah.
The president said to Tucker Carlson that he wasn't going to, if his people weren't taken care of, he wasn't going to sign anything. And I'm wondering what he says to people who voted for him, who relied on the provisions for opioid addiction, things that were included in those essential health benefits if they go away.
With respectfully, I think that's a false choice. Again, the problem with Obamacare is it took all of these benefits, mandated that they had to be offered, and what happened is it spiked insurance rates, it spiked deductibles, and choices went away. And the point isn't making a benefit go away or not, and that's why I think it's respectfully a false choice. It's actually offering options to people. It's literally like any other service or product that we have here in this country, where you can buy what you want. Sometimes it's at a lower price point because that's what you can afford. Sometimes you buy features on a product because you want those features. Sometimes you determine that you don't need. But people should have choice in the healthcare market just the same way that they do in almost every other industry. I mean, that's the point. It's not about giving or taking. It's about the point that they are being mandated in a way, and that's the point, is that people should buy what they want and what is appropriate for themselves or their family. I mean,
right now, where do the essential health benefits stand? That they're going to be part of this bill or still?
I think my understanding is they're part of the House bill. Yeah, Alexis.
So just to follow up on Mara's question, I think part of the inherent question is a lot of people buy insurance not knowing what they're going to need. So Mara suggests.
Well, I think if you're an older man, you can generally say that you're not going to need maternity care.
That's possible, but here's the question Mara was suggesting. Opioid and drug addiction, you don't buy your insurance and say, I really need that backup coverage because I think I'm going to get addicted to painkillers or opioid drugs. So the question is the president confident that the kind of choice he has ambitions for would be offered by insurance companies on their own volition?
I think several plans, I'm sure. I mean, again, you're asking, I think there's a market for things, but like anything else, I don't think you buy insurance for anything, Alexis, guessing, saying, hey, I assume that if my house burns down, I'm going to need to replace all these things. You buy insurance, that's the whole point of insurance. And I think when people look at it, they're going to buy what they may not need, but they're going to evaluate it. And that's the same thing when you look at a retirement plan or car insurance or anything else. You evaluate what your needs are and then make the decision what's best for you or your family. Sarah.
President Trump did not collude with suspected Russian operatives and coordinate on the release of damaging information to Hillary Clinton's campaign.
So say the first part of it again.
Can you say unequivocally
That-
that associates of
See,
President
I think
Trump
this is, with all due, again, yeah. And this is, the way that the term associates is flown around, I don't understand what that means. If you're talking about employees of the campaign, employees of the transition, or in the White House, that's one thing. But the way that this term associates gets thrown out, and again, we talked about this yesterday, you pull out a gentleman who was employed by someone for 5 months and talk about a client that he had 10 years ago. No, I can't unequivocally say that nobody ever in his past who may or may not have come in contact with him, who sat next to him at a plane, who grew up with him in grade school, because that's a lot of times this associate.
The gentleman, Paul Manafort, you were referring to as a campaign chairman.
No, I get it, and you're going, right, no, I understand who he is. Thank you, I'm well aware of Paul, as I read it out yesterday. But the point that I'm making is when you use a term like associate and you use all of these subjective terms, there's a reason that you're doing it, which is because you don't have anything concrete. If you do, come back to me and ask, does anyone in the White House? Is anyone in the transition? But when you throw out a vague term like that, it's a catch-all. Can you be certain that no one who works for Time Life Turner has ever done anything illegal? I think that's a pretty broad way of casting a net, that, or who has visited the building. I mean, that's what you're equivocally saying.
Question of anonymous sources, I mean, you clearly have an issue with the way that they have been used among
Well, I think a lot of-
intelligence officials, but people in this White House are often on background. They are often appearing as anonymous sources. Devin Nunes has used an anonymous source to present his intelligence.
No,
So why is it acceptable in that case, but not in
But
other
first of all,
cases?
there's two issues here. Number one is, what I have a problem with, and in specific with the reporting that your network did yesterday, is it was one subjective term after another. It was associates that may or may not be there, so all one subjective term after another with no concrete proof that anything happened. No way, when you use a term like associates, you don't even put a time frame around it. It's a little bit nebulous at best to suggest that somebody over and over again making a claim the way you do and the narrative continues without any substantiation. When you're talking about Nunes, there's a reason that with someone who's dealing with classified information can't go out into public and reveal certain things, because no, that's not what he said. I don't think he ever said that anything wasn't classified, but there are certain things that the methods.
About it because it was not classified.
No, he's able to talk about the subject. He cannot talk about the specifics, would be my suggestion, that you can't talk about specifics of a case in terms of the sources and methods and the individuals. Because part of what's happened is that a lot of the individuals who've been masked or unmasked are supposed to be classified. So just because something's gone into the public domain doesn't make it any less unclassified. That's the problem.
Sean, the nuclear posture review is commencing with this administration. Can you assure us that everything is on the table, including a lifting of a moratorium on nuclear weapons testing and also developing new nuclear warheads?
I don't have a full readout on that at this point. I'll either get back to you, I'll have someone from the NSC to get back to you. Katie.
You keep saying that there's not a plan B for healthcare. President Trump has repeatedly said that Republicans should just allow Obamacare to collapse because Democrats will own that, and therefore maybe we shouldn't do anything about it. But it's not fair to the American people to do that. Is the reason there's not a plan B is because the president's plan is to allow Obamacare to collapse?
No, the president's plan is to pass the bill tonight, get it onto the Senate, and then sign a bill once it goes through conference. That's the president's plan, and that's what the president's been, fighting for it. That's why the president's been trying to make it stronger and stronger every day. But I think he states a very clear reality, which is that if it doesn't do this, that it is a false choice to compare what we're doing with Obamacare, because Obamacare is collapsing. The premiums are skyrocketing, the choices are going down, the deductibles are going up. There is no equivalency. Something is failing, and we're actually trying to get rid of it to help the American people. And the point the president's making is the politically expedient answer is to do nothing. But I think for the sake of the American people and the needs that they have in terms of health care, I think we owe it to them to do the right thing.
Follow-up question. who is the president holding accountable for the split in the Republican Party not being able to get this bill done, the struggle that it's taking to get the votes at the last minute? Is he holding Republican leadership, Paul Ryan, accountable for bringing a bill to the table without having consensus from the Freedom Caucus, or is he holding the Freedom Caucus accountable for opposing
I think
it?
right now we're not focused on blaming. We're focused on getting it done and winning.
Criticize President Obama for the way he sold Obamacare, and there may be some validity to that.
Thank
but
you.
Candidate Trump, President-elect Trump, and now President Trump have been selling this legislation as coverage for everybody, lower premiums, lower deductibles, and better health care.
Thank you.
Hasn't he put Republicans on the spot with this legislation?
Sure.
By selling it that way?
But it is. So yes, thank you for the advertisement. I appreciate it. I think that's what. Of course it can. It will do that, and that's what the point is. But I think that there has been I think there is some concern, as I mentioned earlier, about the timing, and I think we have continued to allay a lot of those concerns because of the rules that they are. And again, one of the things that is tough to explain to a lot, or not tough to explain, but just the reality is that if we don't do it the way that we're going to do it, we need 60 votes, and we're not going to get 60 votes in the Senate for this bill. The Democrats are united in stopping any progress being made on this. And so I think the point that we've had to make over and over again is, I get it. In a perfect world, if we had 60 votes, we could do this in a very, very different way and have a much more comprehensive legislative strategy. But in the same way that the Democrats use reconciliation, as do we, to undo it. And the reason that it is a three-pronged, three-phase approach is because of the nature that it has to get dealt with. I think for a lot of folks, many of them are new to the process. Many of them want to see it done in a different way. And I think we are trying to do it in the most responsible way, so that when it gets sent over to the Senate, we don't have to have a huge parliamentary fight about what's they quote unquote birdable or not. And that's, while most people don't want to, fully appreciate the nuances of that, it's a reality that we have to face if we actually want to get it done. And I think that makes a big, big difference. Peter.
Sean, yesterday when Chairman Nunes was here, we heard his comments. Today, behind closed doors, he apologized to the committee for not coming to them before he came to the president. He expressed regret for the way he handled this, going public and going to the president before speaking to the members of his own committee. So I guess my question is, why was it appropriate? Why does the White House believe it was appropriate for Chairman Nunes to come and give this information to the president regarding an investigation about the president's own associates during the campaign?
Well, two things. One is, it wasn't, as has been asked before, to ask me why he did something. He made a decision. He briefed. Hold on, you were getting there. I saw you've seen enough of you, Peter. I know where you're going. I know where you were going. But the reality is that he made a decision. He briefed the press first. No one had a problem, by the way, in the press corps of getting briefed before everybody else. He went down. He briefed your colleagues before he briefed anybody else. I don't hear too much crying about that. The reality is, and then he made a statement and said, I'm going to come down to the White House and share this information with the president. As has just been noted, he didn't give us a heads up. He told us, he made an announcement. He said, I'm coming down to the White House, asked for time to share this with the president. And I think part of the reason, to be clear to your question, is specifically to say that there is a big difference between any discussion about what's going on in Russia and why this intelligence was picked up. His comments yesterday were very clear. The intelligence and the information that he picked up had nothing to do with Russia. And I think he felt as though, according to his own words, they had an obligation to make sure the president knew what he had discovered. That's it, plain and simple.
So to be clear, though, just because appearances matter on this, doesn't the White House have a concern that it creates the appearance that there was potentially interference by the president, that he was included in conversations about the investigation before it was completed?
My concern, to be perfectly blunt with you, is that it's always you seem to have an obsession with the process and not the substance. At some point, hold on.
The president's the one who wants the conclusion. He asked for it, so I'm asking,
I understand
why did he
that.
ask for details before it was completed?
Because as Chairman Nunes said, and again, I'm just going to make it clear, because he said that he wanted to make it very clear that the discussion and the revelations that he had were did not regard anything to do with Russia, and he wanted the president to understand that. But there seems to be this obsession with the process. How did he get here? When did he go? What was the reaction? at some point there should be a concern about the substance. That's a very serious revelation that he's made about what happened during the 26th election with respect to our side and some of the things that happened. And at some point, I would implore, urge, beg some of you to use some of your investigative skills to look into what actually did happen. Why did it happen? What was going on back there? Who knew what when? But I think that there should be a similar concern as opposed to figuring out whether he took a skateboard or a car here to exactly what happened and why it happened. And the reality is that whether he briefed us first or he briefed the Democratic members, and that's up to him to decide, the substance of what he shared should be troubling to everybody. And that's what I think is the important thing.
So to follow on this thought, I want to ask you, at CPAC, President Trump said people, quote, shouldn't be allowed to use sources unless they use someone's name. He said it does, quote, tremendous disservice. It's following up with the conversation you started with Sarah earlier. So I guess the simple question is, Chairman Nunes came out, he noted sources that he couldn't create and provide publicly. So why, when it's politically advantageous, is that use of sourcing okay, but when it's politically damaging, it's not okay?
No, I think there's a different, he came out and briefed people on what he knew at the time and said he was literally going to get further briefs and would have further updates. That's a big difference than reporting and making a serious allegation. In fact, he was doing quite the opposite. He was vindicating the president and saying, there is something that you need to know about the substance of the allegations that are being made against you and why that may or may not be the case, because some of what I've seen...
If he had not been vindicating, wouldn't it have been just as important for the president to learn?
Sure. And I think maybe he would have, and then you probably wouldn't have any concern with that, would you?
My question is to you.
Margaret.
Following on that, two questions. You said again the word vindicated. The president said he felt somewhat vindicated. Did he feel that having Chairman Nunes come down here helped his own credibility?
I think it's reassuring to know that that what he discussed, well, again, the chairman made it very clear that he's not final in any of his processes, that what he had seen so far gave him grave concern, or whatever the exact phrase before I get, but to use the phrase that Chairman Nunes needed to say, that he said, that he gave him concern and pause for what he had seen and wanted the president to be aware of the activity that he had seen that occurred during the transition period. I think that's an important, so I think, yes, the president did, it was helpful for the president to know that the investigation, as he had asked for, was starting to bear fruit. And again, I think the equally important thing to note about yesterday was that part of what Chairman Nunes said was that it had nothing to do with these allegations and narrative about Russia. And I think that is a very, very important narrative to be clear on.
And are they going to meet again? And after the conversation, since they spoke directly, did the president accept Chairman Nunes' finding that there was no wiretapping at Trump Tower, which he said yesterday?
Well, one, I don't think the first one wasn't planned. There's nothing planned for the chairman to come down again. But second of all, I think I have, and the president has very clearly explained that the tweet wasn't to be taken literal in the sense of the word wiretap, that he was talking about surveillance in general. And yes, I think that once what Chairman Nunes said is that there was evidence of surveillance that occurred during the election. And I think that is important to note. Again, I think the obsession is with the process of how he got here, and what time he left, and who he briefed first, as opposed to the substance of this issue. But I'm not going to, all I'll tell you is the public comments that he made to you and your colleagues both here and up on Capitol Hill was that he was very concerned with the surveillance that he had seen and reports of surveillance and individuals who had been masked and unmasked during especially the transition period. I think that should express concern for a lot of individuals.
So the president's confident that Chairman Nunes can continue to lead this investigation and, in his view, be
Absolutely.
impartial, because there have been
Yes.
some questions about that, including from Republicans.
Yes. Thank you guys very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great one.
I'm ready. Welcome back. That was Sean Spicer's White House press briefing. Hope you enjoyed it. A lot of interesting stuff in it. We are here for the post-show. I'm Steve Lookner here at Right Side Broadcasting Studios. We'd love to get your take on what went on in the press briefing. If you'd like to send in your comment, you can write to me, Steve Lookner. I'm at Lookner on Twitter, at Lookner. You can direct message me there. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And one other option we have during this post show, if you'd prefer to call me rather than write in, you can call me at, here's the number, 202-470-0049. That number's on your screen. Feel free to call in and talk as well and give your thoughts on what you saw during the press briefing, or maybe your thoughts on the health bill, what's going on with that. Whatever you'd like to talk about, as long as it's politics related and that kind of thing. And also, just so you know, if we have the ability to take one call at a time here. So if somebody's on the line and you try to call in and it's like busy, it's not because we're ignoring you or something. It's just because we can't take multiple calls at once. So we're restricted to one call at a time right now. So I'd love to hear from you either by way of Twitter or email or even on the phone. Give me a shout. Let me know what you're thinking. And I want to get to, before talking about the briefing, a couple of you had already sent in comments, and I wanted to read them. Chris said this filibuster is pure politics at play, and what he's talking about is the filibuster. Democrats have said they're going to filibuster Neil Gorsuch, the nominee for Supreme Court that President Trump made. And so Chris says this filibuster is pure politics at play. And CNN equals very fake news wrote me on Twitter, and he says, I don't really like the American Health Care Act, but it's the best we can realistically expect, and it should pass so we can move on with tax cuts. Thank you, both Chris and CNN equals very fake news. And we've seen from your comments, you seem to be split. Some of you want to have this bill passed, this American Health Care Act, the Obamacare replacement bill. Some of you don't like the bill at all and don't want it to pass. And I think that reflects what's going on in the Republican Party as well. Some like it, some don't. A very important part of the briefing was Sean Spicer came out and said the president and people in the White House are working with conservative Republicans, specifically the House Freedom Caucus, to make some changes in the bill to try to get enough support for it to pass the House. But Sean Spicer did say they're planning on having a vote tonight. He said, as far as he knows, they're still planning on having this vote tonight. He thinks it's good. He says it's going to pass. Somebody asked Sean Spicer, said, well, do you have a backup plan in case the bill doesn't pass? And he said it's going to pass. So he's confident. He says he thinks they are gaining support for the bill throughout the day, and he thinks they're going to have enough votes to pass. Now, there's conflicting information out there about whether this is true. So one thing that's out there, some reporting. So, for example, Casey Hunt sent out a tweet from MSNBC a little while ago where she said her reporting is that actually support for the bill was decreasing rather than increasing. I actually sent out a tweet a few minutes ago because I saw a Republican congressman, Mark Amodai, I think I'm pronouncing that right, from Nevada, he tweeted during Sean Spicer's press briefing, so he tweeted 15 minutes ago, he said, we've done our homework, we've closed on the issue in preparation for a vote tonight. Okay, 1 second, we'll get to Mary. Just to feed what Representative Marco Amodai said, he said, we've done our homework, we've closed on the issue in preparation for a vote tonight. I'm a no on the American Health Care Act. And to me, if Republican congressmen are already going on the record tweeting that they're going to vote no, they must think it's not going to pass. That's not a good sign for the bill. We'll talk about that more after, but I want to hear what Mary has to say. We have Mary on the line. Mary, hello, what is your question?
Well, number one, I'd like to say those reporters are a bunch of stupid asses.
Okay, but, and just Mary, if I could interrupt you, I appreciate the comment, but try to keep it clean for our viewers out there as you go on with your call.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. No problem. But thank you, Mary. I appreciate the thought. Okay, continue.
Yeah, and my question is where can we actually see this bill so we, the people, can make an informative decision on what to tell our representatives?
So, Mary, this is an excellent question, and I know one thing that I've heard some people being asked in Congress this morning is, so since they're actually still making changes to the bill as of today, so reportedly in the White House they're talking about to congressional Republicans and specifically House Freedom Caucus members, and they're talking about making some sort of deal and making some changes to the bill. So it seems that as of right now, there's no bill you can see right now because the bill isn't even done yet in its final form. Now, there is an important question you're asking, which is when this bill is, if there's going to be a vote on this bill, which might be tonight, will a final version of that bill be released before the vote? I've seen some speculation that said if the vote is tonight, some members won't even get a chance to read the whole bill before they vote on it just because it'll be so soon after they decide. So I'm assuming, Mary, that you would like to see the final bill before you decide if you're in support of it or not. And that's a reasonable question. I don't have that information for you. I will say, though, that I understand the position somebody might take that if the bill is still being negotiated now, there will not be time for people to see it, both in Congress and in the general public especially, before it's voted on. And I take it, Mary, if you're still there, I take it that you think...
Yes.
So, Mary, so is your opinion that, let's say the White House works out some kind of deal today with congressional Republicans, and they change the bill some today to a form in which enough Republicans can vote on it, will vote on it to get it passed. You think there should be enough time for the American public to be able to see the bill and digest it and decide on it? Is that your view? And if so, like how much time do you think there should be? How long do you think this vote should wait if they're changing the bill today?
I'm thinking you should at least give the American public anywhere from 48 to 72 hours to actually get it, try to read it and digest it, probably longer because it's full of legalese. And all they're going to do is do the same thing they did with Obamacare and just shove it down our throats. That is incorrect. That is not right. We don't need another Obamacare bill shoved down our throats.
So I understand where you're coming from, Mary. And so you think, now if they said, Mary, like, we'll delay the vote to Monday, is that enough time, or do you think that there's more time needed because it's such a complex bill?
Well, because it's complex, it might need more time than that, but at least it would give us the opportunity, give us the opportunity to try to read it.
I hear you, Mary.
I mean, that's the whole point.
Yes, and I hear you. And something else some people have said is they've said, well, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, they did a scoring of this bill where they estimated, how it would affect, say, the deficit and how many people might not be covered according if this bill passes. But reportedly, if this bill is changed, there's no plan to do another CBO scoring where the CBO would analyze this bill, which presumably the analysis would be different if the bill got changed significantly. Do you think, would you be also in favor of, if the bill gets changed significantly, having the CBO analyze it so American public could have a better idea of what the effects of the bill might be?
Definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. We need to know what they're trying to shove down our throats again.
Great, Mary. Well, thank you. I appreciate your view. I understand your anger, and also it's a very well thought out argument you present, and a compelling one. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with our viewers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
So that was Mary. Mary, as you heard, thinks that there should be more time for this bill to be digested and read by the American public before it's voted on. That's assuming there will be some changes made to it. And another point I just want to say that I want to repeat that Mary made is she wanted to avoid what she felt happened during Obamacare. She felt that Obamacare was shoved down the throats of Americans and it was not adequately time given to look at it, and she does not want that happening again with this bill. So we appreciate Mary's comment. If you'd like to call in and give your comment, you can, I'll say the number again, it's down there, 202-470-0049. Also, feel free, maybe you're not a phone person, I get that. Write to me as well. You can write to me at Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. That's where to find me. You can direct message me there. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Speaking of which, I just want to make sure I haven't ignored any of your comments that you might have sent in. So give me a second to check. I think I'm caught up there, and let me just pull up. Sorry, I should have had my email open before so I could have seen it. Let me just pull it up so that if you email me, I can get your email and not ignore it. Okay. And I wanted to also say there were a couple of things Sean Spicer mentioned during the press briefing that I wrote some notes down of some things I thought were interesting. So Sean Spicer did confirm that one of the changes they're talking about today in the White House with congressional Republicans, specifically the House Freedom Caucus, is they're talking about removing the essential health benefits requirement. So Obamacare requires insurance, all insurance that's offered to health insurance to cover certain essential health benefits, including it's like preventative care and maternity care, rehab. There's a bunch of different things it requires. And a number of the congressional Republicans who are opposed to the bill right now, they would like to see that requirement eliminated, and so it would give insurance companies more freedom to offer slimmed down insurance plans. And Sean Spicer did say that that was one of the things they were talking about in their proposed deal, proposed changes to the bill today. He also said this. So he said that today, this afternoon, a more moderate group of Republicans, so the House Freedom Caucus is pretty conservative, okay, and so in a second we're going to take another call, but he did say that a more moderate group of Republicans, the Tuesday group, they're going to be visiting the White House this afternoon. So they will, White House is really getting into it today, trying to pass the bill, but again, trying to get the bill passed, but again, they say, the White House, that they think there's going to be a vote tonight, but we're also hearing some Republicans coming out and saying that they're going to vote no on it. So we still don't know if there's going to be a vote tonight. We'll see. We have Ryan on the line. Ryan, hello. What is your question?
Hey, man. Love what you guys are doing over there.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Right, buddy.
Thanks.
Hey, I would just put this in context. Republicans that are voting no and they're complaining, I would just say they have to realize that currently they're on the Titanic and they're complaining that the life rafts don't have a food or beverage service. You got to realize what we have right now and what that is going to end up doing.
So your view, Ryan, if I'm getting it right, you think, okay, there might be some flaws in the current bill, but whatever the flaws in the current bill are, Obamacare is much worse. And you think Republicans who are voting no, they should just vote yes, because if they vote no in this bill, if the bill isn't passed, we're left with Obamacare. Is that your view, correct?
That's correct. It's a journey. Rome was not built in a day. So does it improve from our current situation that the boat we're on is sinking? And obviously we can make amendments. They've already come out and said this is a 3-part process. So that's what I don't understand. You got to put it in context of what we have right now.
Now, Ryan, can I ask you, if this bill were not to pass, do you think that the Republicans who vote against it will suffer in the next election, like next November of 2018? Will they suffer? And as a voter, would you hold that against a candidate if they voted against this bill?
In the context of being on the Titanic, yes, I would have an issue with someone that says do not get in the life raft because it's not comfortable enough, and I don't think that's a good idea. Okay. I think that's bad leadership.
Okay, great. Ryan, that's a very interesting take. I really appreciate your call, and thanks for your call, and thanks for your view, and thanks for watching Right Side. So, feel free to call in again sometime. Appreciate it. So, another interesting comment from Ryan, who thinks that Republicans who are in Congress, who are voting against this, who say they're going to vote against this bill, they should consider what the alternative is if this bill doesn't pass, which is Obamacare. And Ryan thinks that he compares Obamacare to the Titanic, and he says you shouldn't want the Obamacare option. Even if the current option is flawed, it's better than the Obamacare option. So thank you for that call, Ryan. So, and if you would like to call in, I'll say it again, 202-470-0049. You can call. Come on the air here at Right Side. Let us know what you're thinking about the bill, whatever you think about it. Or you can also write me at Twitter, at Lookner, at LOOKNER. Direct message me if you'd like. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I had some more notes about some stuff Sean Spicer said today, but just, again, want to make sure that we're getting to all of the comments people say. Now, I got a comment. I said something on the air before about how GOP Republicans, at least some of them, were coming out and saying they were going to vote no. I quoted one GOP Republican who during the Sean Spicer briefing tweeted that he was voting no on this bill. And I did see, I want to read, somebody responded to my tweet. This is Gary number pray for GG. Gary hashtag pray for DJT. And he commented on my tweet. He said, "We will remember you at re-election time and work to see you lose." So on Twitter, Gary hashtag pray for DJT, he suggests that he will hold the people, Republicans, who vote against this bill, if they vote against it, he will hold them accountable, and he thinks Republican voters will hold them accountable for this. So much going on with this one story today. You know, will they vote for it or not? Will the bill change between now and the vote? Will the vote be tonight or not? Will, if the White House thinks it won't pass, will they have a vote anyway just to get people on record? Might it be the case that no one's sure if the bill will pass, and they have this vote, and it's like the vote happens and no one's really sure what's going to happen during the vote? So lots of really interesting stuff coming up on this vote today. We at Right Side, we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to be covering it for you. If we hear news throughout the day, we will break it and cover it for you. But also, if this vote happens, even if it's super late at night, we'll come on live and give you the blow-by-blow about what we're hearing about the vote. So we're planning on covering it for you. By the way, if you enjoy our coverage here at Right Side, of these kind of events, and now, you know, if you enjoy that we get your feedback on the air, and we now take calls from you, and you enjoy that we go out to President Trump's rallies and we cover them and we give them the full coverage. We don't just give them like the mainstream media. We actually show all of the speakers at the rallies, and we talk to people who are in line at the rallies, and we talk to the people who are there and get their views. If you enjoy us doing all that, just know that we rely on you to bring you that coverage, because we don't take money from big donors who want to control what we have to say. And also, it's not cheap to do all this stuff. As I said before, when we went to the Louisville rally a couple days ago and covered that, it cost us close to $2,000 just for the internet to be able to bring you the signal. So if you like our coverage and you'd like to help us out, it help you keep us in business. The way to donate is, if you're watching this live, there's a chat room next to the screen. Just go to the bottom of the chat room, click on that $sign. That allows you to donate. And any amount's great. Every donation helps, no matter how small or how big. It always helps. So that $sign at the bottom of the chat room is the easiest way to donate. But you can also go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And speaking of the chat room, moderators, thank you for your continued moderation of the chat room and your great service to Right Side Broadcasting. Let's see here. I have a couple messages here. All right, so Miss Teresa says, in case this has been forgotten, this bill is fewer than 70 pages. Obama's bill is 9,000 plus, the Obamacare bill. Now, I don't have the bills in front of me, so I can't verify the actual page numbers, but I do remember, Miss Teresa, a couple weeks ago, Sean Spicer had that press conference where he compared the size of the bills, and he pointed at the current bill and he said this is so much less high than the Obamacare stack of paper is. So thank you, Ms. Teresa, for writing that in. Appreciate it. Another comment, this came in before, and this is from Solomon's Temple. I want to read it. Solomon's Temple said, "No one is talking about the debt ceiling expired as of March 15th. We are using a Treasury credit card to run government. Maxes out in June." Thank you, Solomon's Temple, for sending that in. And let's see, I'm just checking here, making sure I'm all caught up. Chris has a comment. Chris says, this bill isn't passing. The president needs to stall this quickly. See, all right, now Chris, you make a good point. I get your view, which is that you say the bill isn't passing, and I do think there's a good argument to be made that the bill isn't passing. Also, during the Sean Spicer press briefing, I forgot to say this, the leader of the House Freedom Caucus announced that there was no deal reached between the House Freedom Caucus and the White House on this bill. So as of now, the House Freedom Caucus, which is 36 members, that's more than enough to kill the bill, they are not supporting the bill as of right now. There's no deal reached with them. There are a number of signs like that suggest it's going to be tough for this bill to pass. Now, Chris, you're saying the bill isn't passing, the president needs to stall this quickly. I understand that view, but I also, part of me thinks, and I said this in the pre-show, the president, the White House, they have to know this is going to be tough to pass this bill. They have to know this. And yet they're pushing it forward. And that makes me think it's at least possible. It's possible. I'm not saying it's certain, but it's possible that they think it's not going to pass, but they want to push it forward anyway and want to get a vote on it for some sort of reason. Now, one reason could be they think it's not going to pass, but given that it's not going to pass, they would rather be able to move on from the bill. So one strategy they might have is, let's have a vote on it tonight. It won't pass. And then they can say, hey, we tried. You voted for President Trump. President Trump tried his best to get this passed. Congress wouldn't go along. These certain congressional members wouldn't go along. And then what that would allow them to do is move on to tax reform, move on to an infrastructure bill, move on to other stuff. And you know what? Maybe they could, if they got that stuff passed, they could come revisit this later. So I don't know that this is happening, but it's possible to me. I just have to think that the White House has a decent idea about the chances of this bill. I do not think it'll be the case that they have a vote and it doesn't pass and the White House is just shocked and they're like, oh, we thought, what just happened to us? We thought this was going to pass. They have to know. So to me, if they have a vote and it doesn't pass, you have to at least consider the possibility that the White House knew it wasn't going to pass and decided to go with a vote anyway, and they have some reason for doing so. We could speculate on what that reason would be. So that's just my view. Now, you could disagree with me on this. That's just my view. I assume the White House is aware of where people stand in Congress on this bill and that they're not just completely misled and misinformed about that. So we'll see what happens. Appreciate the comment. We are here. It's the post show for the Sean Spicer press briefing. We always do a post show. We always do a pre-show. Unlike the mainstream media, we think it's important to do that. We think it's important to do that. And we take your comments here, and we also take your calls. We had a couple great calls already on the post show. If you'd like to call in, we'd love to hear from you. What did you think about the press briefing, or what do you think about this health bill? People really still seem to want to talk about that today. Are you for or against the health bill? Do you think Congress should have a vote tonight? We heard one caller before, I believe her name was Mary, say, hey, we haven't been able to look at the bill yet. If they're going to make changes to the bill, you should give us some time to look at it. What do you think? Do you think Congress should vote for it or against it? Would really like to hear what you think about the bill. If you want to reach out and tell us and have me share your view with the other viewers, you can here's one thing you can do. You can call me. We have that new technology now here in the studio. It's so great. The number is 202-470-0049. Let me know what you think. Another way you can reach me and get your comment read is go to my Twitter, which is @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Feel free to follow me while you're there, and follow Right Side Broadcasting @RSB Network. Get all the latest from Right Side Broadcasting. But anyways, you can direct message me on Twitter, or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Your comments, your questions, happy to share your thoughts with everybody. We really want to hear what you have to say out there. And Chris already wrote me back, and Chris said, if it doesn't pass through, in my opinion, Ryan will blame Trump. If they stall it for a few days, they could get a better deal? Fair? So you think maybe they should stall for a few days? Could they get a better deal? So good question. I have no idea. I don't know how the negotiation's going. Maybe there's a world in which if they start stalling, then more people drop away from supporting the bill. Maybe stalling helps them get a deal. I honestly don't know. It's a good question. I'm sure they're talking about these questions right now in the White House and in Congress and in Speaker Ryan's office. So appreciate you writing in, Chris, and sharing your view on this. I'm just checking here to make sure I'm all caught up. And I also wanted to check. One thing I want to do real quick is just check my Twitter feed, because stuff is moving fast today, so I just want to make sure we're caught up on any kind of late releases, from about this going on, any tweets or anything like that. I think I'm good. By the way, Ann Coulter is really against this bill, so and also she's against the changes that are being proposed. So if you want to read up somebody's tweets who are against the bill and against the changes being discussed today, go to Ann Coulter's Twitter, because she has been on fire today criticizing the proposed changes. Oh, and I'm also, I'm going to read Will Nardi. He's often on the air here at Right Side Broadcasting. You might know him from seeing him on the air. He sent out a tweet about this. I want to read William's tweet. William Z. Nardi, at Will the Thinker, he tweets out, "The Freedom Caucus is right. This is Obamacare light. But do they really think they can practically scale back the bill further right now?" So William thinks the Freedom Caucus is wrong to think that, practically speaking, they can make changes in the bill and scale it back at this point. So that's what Will said. Again, he's at Will the Thinker if you want to read. He's a smart guy if you want to read more of his tweets. This is a message from Gene. Gene just wrote in. Gene says, "Steve, for Democrats not to vote to just make the president fail is a sad time. Worried that this is the setup to what will follow unless we get involved." Okay, so let me finish reading this tweet and we have another call. So again, Gene says, "Steve, for Democrats not to vote to just make the president fail is a sad time. Worried that this is the setup to what will follow unless we get involved and let our representatives know they need to work with the president and stop being childish." And I think that, Gene, that you're saying that you want this bill to be passed and you want the representatives and the president to figure out how to pass this health bill. Thank you, Gene. If I got that wrong, let me know. But I think that's what you were saying. Thank you for the message. And we have Russ, I believe. Hold on, Russ. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick before I talk to you. All better. Russ, hello. Can I ask? I'm going to ask, Russ, you don't have to say, but I'd love to know what part of the country you're calling from.
I'm calling from Tempe, Arizona.
Very good. So welcome to the show. Thank you for calling in. What is your question today or your comment?
Well, my comment is I think, once again, I think the Republicans have really, really missed the boat on this. And instead of catering to insurance special interests, they should have done something maybe much different, much more different than perhaps maybe anybody could have thought. With all of the government insurance plans that are out there, anything from Champus to TRICARE to the Indian Health Service to Medicaid, Medicare, the VA, you name it. I would roll it all into one and use all those funds and all the taxes that are already accrued from Obamacare all into one program. And this is where Congress has missed the boat twice with this. If we guaranteed just primary care for all Americans on the government side, using the private insurance market to cater just specifically for people who have chronic medical conditions and cap out how much these insurance companies can actually charge. I think in doing so, and just by only guaranteeing primary care, we will have accomplished far more, but with less government.
This is a very interesting view, Russ, and one thing I want to point out about your proposal is that you're saying, one thing is that it would be simpler in a way because you're saying rather than having all these different programs, you have the Medicare and the Medicaid and the veterans and stuff, you're just saying one program, cover primary care, however we define that. It sounds like you mean some like basic care for Americans, and then if they want to buy additional insurance, they can. But it certainly sounds like it would be like a simpler proposal than the piecework we have now. I'm guessing you like that part of it.
Yes, but I would go much further. I would codify it to where they could open this up to every state in the union to buy that, say for need for chronic, for people that have chronic health conditions, like diabetes or arthritis or stuff like that.
Right.
It would be necessary for them to get a supplemental insurance policy.
Right.
Just like Medicare recipients receive. But at a much lower cost, because that way a lot of these insurance companies do know and can tailor insurance policies that would be able to cover specific chronic medical conditions outside of what primary care can treat.
Right. So this is. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Russ. Continue. I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
it just functions the same as say a catastrophic medical policy, but at a much lower cost.
So it sounds like your view, Russ, if I can clarify, because I know some Republicans out there would say, like, we don't want government involved in health insurance at all. But it sounds like a place you're coming from is you're saying, the insurance companies sometimes charge too much, and that we should be using the power of the government. We shouldn't be, we should limit it, but at the same time, we should be willing to use the power of the government to limit, price gouging by insurance companies. Is that a fair representation of one thing you're saying?
To an extent, yes.
Great.
To an extent, yes. Because what you would have in having both things in play, all American citizens would be covered with just primary care. But if they do have the chronic medical condition, yes, they would be. I would say it would be in their best interest to get a chronic or an actual catered insurance to supplement what the primary care will not cover.
Right. Great. Well, thank you, Russ. I really appreciate that take. It's a good reminder that that there are other views out there, and there's so many possibilities for what healthcare could be, and this healthcare bill is just one of them. So it's really nice to hear somebody propose a different thing that for us to think about. So thanks for the call, Russ. Really appreciate it.
And I thank you for your time, and also I love Brightside. You guys are doing a heck of a job.
So nice of you, Russ. Really appreciate it. We do it for you. We do it for you and the other viewers, and it always makes us so good to hear you say that you're enjoying it, because that's our goal, is to give you programming that you enjoy. So thanks for saying that, Russ. Really appreciate it. So that was Russ from Arizona. Great call. Great calls today. And we are still here on our post-show coverage of the Sean Spicer press briefing. If you'd like to reach me here, as you heard, you can call in. The number is, I haven't memorized it yet. It's so new, I haven't memorized it. 202-470-0049. Would love to hear. We have another call right now. Bob, can I ask, where are you calling from, Bob?
Panama City Beach, Florida.
Thank you for calling in, Bob. What's your question or your comment?
Well, I just have a different take on this healthcare thing. My thought is you need to split, the insurance companies need to be out of the healthcare business altogether. And that the way to accomplish that would be, rather than paying insurance premiums to the insurance companies, pay a premium to, let's say, the hospital district of your local hospitals. And basically your payments would go to the hospital districts, and then they would provide health care. Right now what we've got going on is the insurance companies are making a profit on everything. So right at the very beginning, you're losing efficiencies and money that are going to provide health care. Also, the insurance companies really don't care what the cost of things are, because they're going to take a profit off the top. They're going to take a percentage of the cut. So, they want more money. The higher cost is fine with them. They're going to just make out on the long run. So I think we really need to look at separating the two things. Let the healthcare providers provide health care, let the insurance companies provide insurance, but not to the individuals, but to these, let's say, hospital districts that provide health care or catastrophic care, so that, if there is, basically these healthcare districts would purchase insurance directly from the insurance companies to cover these, huge medical costs. Anyway, that's kind of my idea.
So it sounds, Bob, like you think that that the health insurance companies, because they're trying to make this profit and they're so involved, where we all pay our insurance to them, and then they, they get really involved in all of like the healthcare costs and everything and the charges, because they make a profit, and they're so involved in the system right now, and that just contributes to raising healthcare costs. And you think that we need to change the system some so that they're not so involved in the same way, because that is raising prices. It's raising prices for everyone. And I will say that's a number of people who've written in today have talked about the health insurance companies, and they believe that they're an important part of the problem here. Is it fair for me to represent your view as saying, as one part of your view as that?
Yes, that just need to divide the two things. Let each one provide what they do best.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bob, for writing in an interesting perspective and focusing on the health insurance companies. Very much appreciated. Thanks for your call.
Thank you.
So that was a call from Bob in Florida. As I was saying before, if you'd like to call in, I'll say the number again. I'll have it memorized. Not probably tomorrow, maybe in a couple days. I should do it by tomorrow. 202-470-0049. You can call in. Also, you can write in here. Go find me at Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Direct message me there, or email me at steve.lookner@rspn.tv. And we're probably going to be, I think we're going to be here for another 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes on this post show. So if you want to call in or write in, get your call or message in fast. An interesting thing that I've noticed, we've had a number of you call in and write in today with your comments. Really appreciate it. Would love to hear what you have to say. And it strikes me that there's just a number of different concerns about you have. So some of you, for example, Bob, who just called in, are concerned about the role of the insurance companies that they're playing in the healthcare issues. Some of you are concerned about not wanting to continue with Obamacare. Some of you are focused on saying that you think that the Republicans, who if they don't vote for this bill, are going to get punished. Some of you, I've heard people say that make comments that they should pass this bill, and that this is like so we're hearing people for the bill, against the bill. We're hearing a lot of different focuses, and healthcare, it's such a complex issue, and it's whenever I hear a proposal about how to solve healthcare, I immediately start thinking like, boy, so how much would this cost, and how would you do it, and just okay, and I'll just finish my thought, and then we have another call. And I've done some research into this, and a problem with healthcare is like any proposal you try to propose, there's so much to it, because like to figure out how much it'll cost and how you carry it out and how to set up the government to do it and what the real effects will be, it's very, very, very complex. So it's a tough issue to deal with. But I love hearing all of your views and your proposals and your different takes on the matter. We have Scott on the line, I believe. Scott, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from New Jersey.
Thank you for calling in from New Jersey, Scott. What is your comment to your question?
It's more of a statement.
Okay.
Everybody keeps arguing. They wonder why all these Republicans are arguing, and then progressives are arguing. And the issue is that every state is different. New Jersey already had expanded Medicaid well before Obamacare that the taxpayers were paying. That's why New Jersey is one of the most expensive states to live in.
Mm-hmm.
We already had clinics that were fully funded from the state, but yet Kentucky and Tennessee didn't. So healthcare is different there. How much doctors pay are different there. How much they're charging for rent is different there. And that's why the government can't regulate the free market. It's disastrous because a doctor is charging a totally different price in New Jersey and New York or California than it is in Tennessee. Their building costs 25% of the cost itself.
So
regulating is impossible.
And Scott, so I would think one thing in the current version of the bill is this proposal that the government will pay basically the same amount to each state for their Medicaid expenses. And I'm guessing you would say, well, that kind of regulation can't work because it's very different from state to state, correct?
Well, it is different from state to state. And here's a quick example. New Jersey already had, for people that don't know, Medicaid is different from state to state. In one state, like New Jersey, our poverty has optical and dental, 100%. No copay on prescriptions. Okay, and that's different than Medicaid in, say, Tennessee. Okay, so our costs are totally different. It pays to be poor in New Jersey because all we have are taxpayers and nobody that pays taxes. There's like nobody in the middle. It's complete poverty or middle class. And that's the disaster. You can't regulate it that way. Right now, like somebody that's disabled, right, they're on Medicare, but yet Medicaid, they would do better on Medicaid, but they make too much money on Social Security. But yet that money, they can hardly live. It becomes a fiasco. So and you're going to have this... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was going to say, so basically, so it sounds like that you're just saying it's so different from state to state that any attempt by the government, the federal government, to regulate this stuff on a national level is just kind of doomed to failure because there's such great state differences, correct?
Right, because you'll have doctors then wanting to go to Tennessee because there's better profitability margin. Nobody would want to be in New York and New Jersey. That's why New York and New Jersey were already funding these clinics. They've been doing it for years. They've been doing it for 20 years. People don't realize that the expanded Medicaid programs were based on the tri-state area. It was based on New York, New Jersey. It was based on California. That's already had these programs for years. They've been failing for years because the taxpayers have been crying.
Great. Well, Scott, it's a helpful perspective to hear. And it's as someone, you live in the state, so you know what goes on. It shows that how complex this all is because, as you said, each state has its own way of doing things. And if you live there, you know that. And it provides a healthy perspective on how complex the whole system is and how difficult it is to deal with that. So really appreciate you calling in from Jersey and giving us your New Jersey perspective and some insider information from somebody who lives there. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
So that was Scott from New Jersey, and he does remind us that it is quite different in a lot of different states. And as a lot of you know, I think that some states, under Obamacare, there was this Medicaid expansion. Some states chose to expand. Some states didn't. Some states already had expanded it to a degree before Obamacare. So just another way in which healthcare is such a complex issue. It's so complex. And I'll say this, the CBO, for example, came out with their estimates about how much the current Obamacare replacement bill will cost and how it will affect people's insurance, how many fewer people would be covered and that kind of thing. But they're just estimating, and it's so hard to tell because just when you change the structure of how much people get paid for things and how much things cost, and you change the structure of incentives, it can have all sorts of effects that you didn't even think were going to be you didn't think were going to happen or didn't take into account. So very difficult when making economic policy because you're trying to make guesses about how humans will behave and react to things, and so it's so difficult. Healthcare is so difficult, and I will say, someone might say, I could see somebody saying, given how complex healthcare is and how complex it is to figure out what any policy change on healthcare, what the real effects of that will be, it takes a long time to do it and to get a good idea of looking at a bill. It takes a long time to figure out what the bill's really going to do and how it's really going to affect things. And I do know some people have said it's too quick from this whole process of trying to get this health bill passed. I think we had one of our viewers write in and say this, or call in and say this before. It's been so quick, and some people have argued that you can't do a good health care bill this fast as Republicans are doing it this time. Now, other people would disagree with that. So, there's a view that just says, get Obamacare repealed and replaced now, and we can fix it if it needs fixing later. There's that kind of view. But I'll just say again, it is so complex and hard to get our grasp of. But really appreciate your comments and your questions today. A lot of great calls and great comments. We're on for, I think, just a few more minutes here, but if you want to try at the last minute to get in a comment, you can we'd love to get either one. We have time for one more call, and I'll also see if we have a couple more comments if people write in. But if you want to call in and get the last call in today, you can try us at 202-470-0049, or you can email us email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv, or you can direct message me on Twitter at Lookner at LOOKNER. But thank you so far for all of your comments and all your questions, and it's always we try to get an idea of what you guys care about and what you're thinking, but there's no better way of doing that than actually hearing from you, and it's always interesting and surprising and thought-provoking to hear what you're thinking about these issues. You're the Americans, you're the real voters. I mean, I'm an American too, but all of you out there, you're the ones who are going to be voting in all these elections, along with me and everybody else who works here, so we want to hear what you think. I'm just checking to make sure I haven't... Oh, we have Jason on the line. Okay, cool, awesome. This will be a wonderful person to have for the last call. Not that anybody would be wonderful, but Jason, glad to hear you calling in. Jason, I forget. I don't know if I've asked you this. Are you willing to say what region of the country you're calling from?
Yes, I'm from Groveland, Florida.
Okay, cool. So, Jason, are you calling about the health care bill today or something else?
No, absolutely, about healthcare. I mean, we had some great discussions on the chat room here, and by the way, all the callers are great today too. Very good points everybody brought up.
Jason, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because I want you to say, I would love to have you talk, just for a second, for the viewers out there who might not know of the chat room, maybe they're watching it for the first time today, they're watching Right Side for the first time. Could you just say, and you can do this quickly, you don't have to take a long time, but talk a little bit about what the chat room is like for people who might be interested and not know about it, and what kind of stuff you guys talk about in there?
Well, there's a lot of topics. I mean, it depends on the video, I guess, that's up on at the moment, like the press stream we were watching here, and all the submoronic mushrooms asking the questions from MSM. But it's a great place for folks that have like minds and opinions to come and chat with other folks.
Great, and I know it's moderated by the moderators, and they do an awesome job, so we don't have like trolls running around and interrupting the chat and everything. So thank you for indulging me and answering my question. Now, Jason, you were going to ask a question. Continue, or make a comment.
Yes. Well, what we were discussing was the hospital and healthcare reforms. I'm going through a bunch of tests and procedures right now, and I've paid a fortune in deductibles. And one of the reasons is the cost, because they'll charge you the full cost of a bottle of aspirin or bandages, and then turn around, only use one or two, and then redo that again until that box or bottle is gone. And those costs are ridiculous, and the hospital is just bilking the insurance company for all this money. So we can get the cost way down if we do some reform, especially with big pharma too, with the pharmaceuticals.
Yes, and I know, Jason, and I know that there is that issue with like things costing like insane amounts of money that seemingly they shouldn't cost that. But I've also heard about issues where a provider will charge a lot for a medical supply, for example, but they might charge a lot because they know the insurance only pays like 20% of it, so they'll jack up their charge just to get the most money out of the insurance they can. So there's different reasons for this, but as you said, that does seem to be an important problem of like how much these things cost that needs to be dealt with. And Jason, so do you have an opinion on the current health care bill? Would you, if you were voting, would you vote yes or no, or were you not decided yet?
Well, I personally haven't read everything in the bill.
Me neither.
Make a really good
Join the club.
Decision, but just the fact that something's being done now, because I'm getting swamped with it. I would have rather taken my money that I spent this week and donated it to RSBN. But,
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I have to give it to the healthcare.
So it seems like one thing you're sure of is the current system is not working, and we need to change it. And I think a lot of voters share your view, and people who are against Obamacare, and they're just saying we need to change this system. And I'll say on I totally sympathize with your high deductible thing, because like my plan now, I get my plan independently. I buy it myself, and I buy one of the normal plans you buy like on the exchanges, like a silver plan that's so similar to like a lot of individual people have. And the deductibles are so high on it, and it's basically just catastrophic coverage. Most of this stuff initially I just pay myself. So I get where you're coming from, Jason.
And big pharma should be taken to task too. I agree with President Trump that those prices should be negotiated, especially when the government buys in bulk for the same cost as we buy. Mm-hmm. That's not right. Mm-hmm. That should be negotiated way down.
Great. Well, I appreciate your perspective, Jason. Great last call. I love when you call in the shows too. So keep calling in, I hope. But thanks for your call.
Thanks, you guys do a great job.
Thanks so much, Jason. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon. And okay, I think we've come to the end of the show. So really appreciate all the calls today. So many different perspectives. Love hearing from all of you, and all your comments, all your questions. So cool. And, we cover the news, but I'm sorry? Oh, we got one more? Yeah, let's take it. Why not? We have time for one more call, I think. Let's make sure who's on the line. We just like to make sure it's someone not let's say a telemarketer is calling us. We're not going to put them on the air. So we might have a call right now. I'm just waiting to hear from Jake out there. We'll see. Angelina, you snuck in at the deadline. Angelina, where are you calling from today?
From California.
Oh, where in California? Can I ask more specific? Because I moved here from Los Angeles. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, I'm in Loma Linda.
Oh, I've never been to Loma Linda, so. But
we're close to Redlands, going to Palm Springs.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you for calling. Angelina, what are you do you have a question or a comment? What did you want to say today?
Well, in regards to the healthcare, I'm sure not a lot of people knows healthcare. Like the other guy said, he's paying a lot of money for his healthcare, for the services. But when I know a lot of people, they don't look at the explanation of benefits when they receive their bill. But it's pretty much all insurance are discounted program. Mm-hmm. Because if they say, well, the charges is, let's say, $1,000, but then the allowed benefits is only $800, and who pays for the difference? Nobody. But they will put down adjustments instead of a discount. But it will come down to a discounted program. And I'm in the insurance business.
Great. Good to hear your perspective. So continue.
And we have a discounted program that we sell to people, like, let's say, $59 for the whole family or for the whole household. And you can go to different doctors, and because these doctors belongs also to the discounted program, but because of the Obamacare, this discounted program is no longer accepted as, as part of the healthcare program. If not, of course, by the end of the year, they will penalize you because you don't have Obamacare. But there's programs out there that you can buy for a very, inexpensive $59 for the household, and you can go to doctors, and as long as they're members, but majority of these doctors belongs to the, discounted program, and even prescriptions. I mean, we can go on discounted, but a lot of people doesn't know that.
So, Angelina, are you saying that there's a program that you were involved with or knew of that let people for like a relatively cheap price have some coverage, but that with Obamacare it wasn't allowed to be counted as health insurance because it didn't cover all the essential health benefits?
Yes.
So it sounds to me like you're someone who thinks that you don't like that Obamacare requires all the insurance plans to have these essential health benefits, and you think that there should be more freedom for insurance companies to offer other plans that don't cover these things that would be cheaper for people to buy. Is that correct?
Or us, Americans should have a choice what we want for our health care. I mean, like myself, I've been, I was sick, but I did everything on alternative, and I'm completely healed. And for me to buy an insurance, okay, if I buy an insurance, $300 a month premium times 12, that's $3,600. But if my deductible is $15,000, I mean, how much money do I have to pay to have a service?
Right.
In order for an insurance to pay one penny,
right,
you have to satisfy that $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather put my money on a health savings account. So if I need to see a doctor, then I can pay the services. What we need is actually major medical insurance. So in case we end up in a hospital, then we have that major medical. And the preventive side, I mean, there's a lot of doctors there who can charge you, let's say, if their office visit is $50 or $100, but because you're paying them as a cash patient, they'll probably give you $50 discounted.
Okay.
So there's a lot of ways to really put the cost of the insurance really affordable.
Great. So it's a good perspective to hear, and I get the view, and I've heard this view other people express, whereas you want more freedom for the consumers to get the kind of coverage they want to get, and you don't feel that the government telling you that you have to buy this certain coverage is appropriate, and that it would be better off with more freedom of the consumers to get what they want, correct?
Yeah, and I think major medical insurance should be provided in every state, because like myself in California, I was looking for a major medical, but they also have to go through counties. What county do you live in? Oh, they said, well, we don't give that to your county. So I think if they will give major medical, it should be offered to every state and to every county in the United States.
Okay, great. Angelina, thank you so much for your call. I'm glad you got in at the deadline. It was a great call, so I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for watching.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so now I know we really have to go, but really cool hearing from all of you. We'll look forward to hearing from you more in the future about the health bill or whatever else we're talking about. Again, this is Right Side Broadcasting. We cover all of Sean Spicer's White House press briefings. We do a pre-show and the post-show, and we take your comments and calls. It's very interactive, so we hope you continue joining us for that. If you want to, I should say again, if you like this coverage and you want to keep seeing our coverage on the air and you want to see us keep covering live events like President Trump's rallies and CPAC, we do rely on you to stay on the air, because we don't want to take big donations from big companies that want to influence what kind of things we want to say, or big donors who say you can talk about this but you can't talk about this. We want to be independent for you, and we also, it's not cheap to go to events and to have the studio and cover stuff, but we think it's important to do so because you want it. We do this for you guys. So if you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate it. The ways you can do that are, if you're watching this and there's a chat room next to the feed, you can click on the $sign at the bottom of the chat room. Just click on that $sign, and it'll let you very easily just say a donation amount you want to make. Or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate. rsbn.tv/donate. Feel free to follow Right Side at Twitter at RSB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Lookner, at LOOKNER. And subscribe to Right Side on YouTube. And if you want to get informed whenever we do a video, even when we do live coverage of something like breaking news event, when you subscribe, click that bell on YouTube. There's a bell icon. You can say, I want notifications about all the Right Side videos. So thank you to Joe and Jake for producing out there today and helping get this on the air and helping getting all the calls in. Great job. And I'm Steve Lookner. I anticipate, well, we have programming tonight. I believe we have Nick Fuentes at 8 p.m. Eastern, America First. Nick was just featured in an article in the Boston Globe. So if you Google Boston Globe, Nick Fuentes. They talk about Nick Fuentes and Right Side. They also talk about Cassie Dillon from Right Side in there too. So you can see that. See what all the fuss is about by tuning into Nick's show. And Wayne Dupree's show is on at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have Mike Cernovich, The Right Mindset with Mike Cernovich. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But also just know tonight, if there's a vote, we will come on live and cover it. We will bring you updates. If important updates come out about what's going on with the health bill today, we're going to bring this coverage to you. So stick it here, stick with us here at Right Side. And we look forward to bringing you this news today, as we do every day, and bringing you an alternative to the mainstream media. So for now, I am Steve Lookner for Right Side Broadcasting. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon.